So, hey guys, we're OK Social. I'm Jack. I'm the creative director.
I'm Jimmy. I'm head of partnerships and BD.
So today we're going to take a different approach, like Chris mentioned. We're going to kind of talk a little bit about the behind the scenes of the studio, the kind of ins and outs of managing projects, winning work, and kind of all the nitty gritty stuff that you might not see.
Some of the less sexy side of things.
Yeah, that's it. Cool. So yeah, just to give you a little bit of information on who we are. So we're a creative animation studio. We focus on motion graphics, 2D animation, and yeah, lots of branded content, working with agencies and clients direct, creating animations, yeah, worldwide for global brands.
Sweet. Cool. And then jumping into the what, so Jack touched on some of the things that we'll be talking through, but we're going to be, yeah, as you said, digging into a lot of the kind of behind the scenes of running a creative studio. So looking at how we manage growth, challenges around growth, how we run our operations, how we kind of so delving into our systems a little bit in the way that we have things set up, as well as talking about finding and maintaining client relationships as well.
And we'll also be touching on how we manage a team, and then also creative outlets. So yeah, so I guess we wanted to offer some insights around the kind of things that we wish we knew when we first started out. So there's a lot of information I think online around, actually how to create the work, but actually win the work and then manage the work, manage clients, a lot of the kind of behind the scenes stuff that's I think the you kind of don't really realize until you actually start doing it. So that's kind of why we wanted to take this approach. Cool. How it started. So we just wanted to give you a little bit of backstory into each of our career paths, how we got into the industry. I think it's also really interesting, as we sort of chat to different people within the industry. Like I think the paths everyone follows are very different. It's not always linear. It's not always the same way. So we just wanted to give you a little bit of backstory on how we got into the industry. Cool. So yeah, leading myself, I've always been really into creativity, drawing, art, all that kind of stuff. So that kind of felt like quite a natural career path for me. I left school, ended up getting a internship working in a small studio in London, and that was kind of my first ever experience of work. There, I got to work on one of their main clients was Stella McCartney for Adidas, so that collab. So there, I kind of got my first bit of taste of kind of we were creating these animated GIFs, so I kind of got to kind of dive into that, and that was kind of my first taste, I guess, of real world experience in kind of the creative industry. Um, from there, I then worked at a agency called Iris in London, a lot bigger. So that was also a big kind of change going from the kind of really small creative studio to then a big sort of 500 person plus global agency. After that, I went freelance and then, onto sort of founding OK Social and working with some really cool people, doing some really exciting stuff. So shoots, traveling for events and all that kind of fun stuff. And I think something I guess I wanted to kind of touch on here a little bit was the kind of, I guess, the transition path between kind of employed, going freelance, and then employing people. And I think it's something that we kind of get asked a lot around, when's a good time to go freelance? When's a good time to set up your own thing? How do you know when you're sort of ready to make the leap, I guess? And at least for myself, there was not really any real plan or structure to either of those. I kind of one day kind of just randomly decided of like, oh cool, I'm gonna go freelance. There wasn't really much thought to it. I just kind of thought, oh, it's not like I didn't hate my job. I didn't not like being employed. It was kind of the thing, just was like, oh yeah, that sounds fun. Let's do it, and kind of just jumped straight in to doing that. And then so I freelanced for just over 3 years. That was just before COVID. So that was when we were kind of, I'd regularly go into offices in London. It'd probably be like a week or two stint in each of the places. And we'd go in there and work and freelance. And then that kind of snowballed really where After COVID, I was then obviously not going into London, was all working remote, and then we started to get more and more projects on. And this is the kind of turning point again where quite organically I ended up just asking other freelancers I know, like friends, to kind of collaborate with me on these projects. So it kind of then went from me just doing, one part of the project to then all of a sudden kind of managing the project and managing a bit of a team, and then it kind of just snowballed from there really in terms of the kind of organic growth of things. And yeah, and that's just a little bit, I guess, on kind of the backstory of how I got into the industry and the kind of steps I took. And then yeah, over to Jimmy.
Cool. So I suppose my kind of journey into the creative industry was quite a weird one, quite a long one. But yeah, it all kind of came full circle. I always grew up very creative. I had a lot of creative inspiration always kind of around me, and it was always a big passion of mine. Skateboarding in particular was a big passion of mine growing up, and was kind of how I first got into doing creative stuff was just through filming, editing videos when we were younger, putting out a DVD. And that actually also was what kind of got me into print and type design as well. So off the back of that, I really got into skateboarding magazines and particularly kind of the print and the style and the design. And I used to just spend time kind of doing that kind of thing on my own. I had this little plan when I was younger to do my own skateboard mag. I can't remember the name of it now, but used to do a lot of design for that. And then that was kind of me experimenting with those side of tools. And then when I was doing my GCSEs, I actually ironically did learn, even though I'm not one of the animators in the studio, I did get involved in some animation back when I was younger. So when I was at school, I actually learned very badly timed. I learned how to use Flash. So I coded an entire animated website in Flash, and it must have been about 6 months before Steve Jobs kind of preempted the death of Flash. So quite a waste of a lot of learning there after spending so much time getting to grips with it. But again, it kind of really exposed me to that world, and that was kind of where my interests lied. Um, After that, I actually did end up experiment with Cinema 4D as well. I did a little bit of 3D. That was doing some Call of Duty montage videos, which I'm sure some people have probably been there as well before. So again, just some video editing. It was always something that I was really interested with. Um, so following school, I went to university and I studied graphic design. So I spent a few years in Bournemouth and Arts Uni in Bournemouth as well. I did a short course and yeah, got really into graphic design. I was mainly focused on print design, static design, and typography was also a really big passion of mine. So I had quite kind of I guess, a creative throughout my educational life. And then I went freelance for a little bit at the end of my degree. Slowly realized that my skills as a designer were not quite as good as I wanted them to be or thought they would be, and not well, definitely not enough to kind of make a career out of. So my freelance time fell flat, and I didn't want to go back home after university, so I needed to find a job, which led to me just kind of falling into sales. So I ended up working in retail for 8 years at phone companies. So I started with O2, worked my way up a little bit, worked in regional training for them, and then moved to Apple. Worked at Apple for 4 years. Again, just kind of on the shop floor, working weekends, working late. Eventually moving into account management, so a little bit more of like a business-based role. It was a good experience. It taught me a lot about operations. I learned a lot about, how to run an operations of a business smoothly. Obviously, they're very kind of like good at that side of things, so it was a good learning experience. But for me, after working 8 years in kind of corporate companies, I really did work my ass off, and I felt like I was not really getting anywhere. It's quite difficult to get recognized when you're working at companies that size, and I think as well, I just realized that it's not where my passions were kind of from. So I basically got really pissed off one day. I'd had enough, and I was like, right, I'm not doing this anymore. I need to get out. And coincidentally, a friend of mine from university had started up a studio, and I reached out to him because we'd had drunken conversations on and off over the years about how he knew I was good with people, and one day he would bring me into the business. So on a whim, I just dropped him a message when I was at this kind of breaking point with Apple, and I said, hey, you know, out of the blue, but have you got any opportunities going at the studio? And coincidentally, call it fate or not, he just had the budget open up literally a week before I asked him. So it was a big risk for me. I literally cut my salary in half. I had about 3 months of job security ahead of me, with the need to bring in sales to keep my job. And yeah, basically just took a big risk, left the safe corporate lifestyle to jump into something a little bit more fast paced, and a little bit more risky. And yeah, fortunately, it all played out. Had a great couple of years there, grew the business quite a lot. And then 6 months ago, I was looking for something new. And then Jack and I kind of crossed paths and had a couple conversations. And yeah, one thing kind of led to another. And I ended up joining him with OK. And I've been there for coming up to 7 months now. And it's, yeah, it's been a great 7 months. So yeah, a very weird journey, a very long journey, but it felt full circle to be back in the creative industry, but not have the responsibility for coming up with all the creative stuff because I found out that that is not my forte. But yeah, that's me.
Amazing. Cool. So how's it going? So some of the things that we kind of just want to chat, I guess, a little bit around some of the things that we kind of trying to do more and more in the day to day of things. One of that being kind of face to face meetings. I think for us and definitely for myself, where I had that jump from going into studios every day, doing lots of face to face meetings, to then all of a sudden, pretty much after COVID, that pretty much completely dropped off. In the first few years of sort of freelancing and sort of starting up OK Social, I pretty much had no face-to-face meetings. Everything was done over Zoom, over calls. And, there was just kind of no real, I guess, necessity to kind of go out and do face-to-face meetings. And that's one thing that me and Jimmy have sort of really started pushing over the last few months. We've started doing lots of traveling, lots of events, and really just trying to push the kind of more the kind of, I guess, the all the other stuff that's not working. Essentially, it's going, meeting people, doing events, doing podcasts, and just keep. Although we are like fully remote, this is the kind of, I guess, our outlet to actually having that connectivity and meeting people.
Yeah, for sure. This was great actually. I feel kind of when I joined, Jack and I's first time meeting was out in Rome, which is that second to bottom left photo that you see there. So an event called Paradigms. So that was our first time actually meeting in the flesh because I'm based in Lisbon and Jack's in the UK. So
Mhm.
first time we met was going to Paradigms in Rome, which was a great place to meet. Also got to introduce Jack to a lot of people that I'd met the year prior. I was going to put this in the latter section, but I felt it fell in a little bit better here. But I think that kind of just getting yourself out there, and exposing yourself to people as much as you can is a really, really good thing to do. The amount of opportunities that kind of lead to this stuff, or lead from this stuff is crazy. To give you an example, a few days ago, I ended up doing, we started a podcast, and the first guest I had on was Brian Collins, which was off the back of going to these events and just putting myself out there, meeting people. So went to the first Paradigms a couple of years ago, which was in Lisbon. And then, as I said, Jack and I went to the one in Rome last year. And then off the back of that, we ended up organizing a private event in Lisbon around Web Summit for the Collins team. Through that, we met the drum. We met some people from Monotype. We've got some pretty good relationships now with those people. And then we kind of stayed in touch with Collins, started doing this. We did this first podcast with them. And then we've been invited to their chateau out in Cannes this year. So that was all just kind of snowballing off the back of one event in particular. But just kind of getting into these face-to-face situations, I think, in this world, people want to do business with people. So the more that you can get exposure and get in front of people and just meet people and sit down and talk with them and just kind of show people the real side of you a little bit more, rather than just the strictly kind of business side of things, it leads to so much. So just off of the back of what Jack kind of said around these face-to-face meetings, it's something that I would really encourage anybody who's wanting to kind of grow themselves, grow their business, grow their freelance career. Just get yourself in front of people as much as you can, because it really does pay dividends over time.
Yeah, definitely. I think also the conversations you have face to face are so different over, over Zoom or over video call. I think you just get to have those deeper conversations, I think, and definitely for me as well, in terms of like just able like to go and meet people, chat to people, especially, when you work remotely, it can get quite lonely when you just sort of sat in your room all the time. So I think these events are also a really great outlet for all of that as well. Cool. Yeah, a little bit on managing projects as well. So yeah, as I mentioned, so we're a fully remote studio. So we've got guys all over. So I guess just kind of want to chat a little bit around the learning curve, I guess, of managing bigger projects, the art of giving feedback, and selling creativity, and I guess the different processes different companies have. I think that's one thing that I got to see firsthand quite early on in my career when I was kind of freelancing and jumping around lots of different places, is that you really see the difference in the process and the way that projects are managed when you work at like a small studio, for example, compared to a big studio, or a big agency. And that's something I was always really interested in, and just like I guess the turnaround time, how they operate, the kind of I guess back end of how these projects are managed, and how the team size affects that. And I think that's something I really wanted to kind of pick apart the best bits of seeing and sort of experiencing firsthand all of the way that these different companies operate, and then kind of incorporating that into kind of what we do. Um, cool. So yeah, kind of just a little bit of a reel here, sort of talking, showing some of the sort of projects we work on. I think for myself, especially, I think going from kind of being an animator and a freelancer to now kind of spending my time mainly just sort of directing, giving feedback and things, is I guess just trying to understand the difference between one another. Like now I don't get to actually use the tools as much, but I still get to, I guess incorporate all of that into the work we do. And yeah, just keep it fun and exciting, really. Um, cool. Yeah. So as I sort of mentioned, we're a fully remote team. Some of the challenges, I guess, that come with that are kind of just from the kind of operational side of things. So how we manage our kind of processes and workflow, just even the things like where we manage projects and how we store files and how we share files. So we've done a lot of tweaking and tinkering to kind of figure out the best workflow in terms of actually how we can get that working properly. Another thing as well is just like the freedom and flexibility that I think we have being a fully remote team. That's something that we kind of really value and really want to kind of build upon. So in terms of just like I guess the tech stack around how we kind of work remotely and have the kind of freedom and flexibility, so we kind of use Slack for like communications, and then we use a program called Lucid Link for and it kind of acts as our server, and we use that, which works really, really well. I think over time we've kind of tinkered and played around with lots of different ways of doing this, and I think we've kind of found the best way at the moment of kind of getting that working. I guess some of the perks is around the kind of flexible team working remotely is we get to also work with people all over the world, which is really fun.
Yeah, definitely. But obviously, this kind of stuff doesn't come without its challenges. So, as Jack said, we do spend a lot of time, and I'll talk about this in a little bit more depth when we get into the operations section. But looking at how we operate remotely, that we need to make sure that we're operating securely, operating in a way that's also speedy, and yeah, just really staying on top of that operations and tech workflow side of things. So I'll come on to that in a little bit more detail later on. But also, yeah, again, also around communication, things like that. Just how can we overcome those challenges that working remotely can put in place? And as Jack said, one of the nice ways that we kind of make sure we maintain the culture whilst not always being face to face with one another is because we're not spending all this money on an office rent every month. We've got a bit more budget to chuck into these events, so it means that the team can meet in different countries across the world, which personally for me, I'd much rather a few meetings in some cool different countries at cool different events than popping into the same place every day. So that's kind of one way that we overcome that hurdle. Um, Sweet.
I guess another thing that we kind of that I guess comes into play a little bit is the kind of culture of things, and that's where kind of events and especially trying to incorporate sort of creative outlets into what we do as well, to kind of keep that culture in. So recently we did started doing some exploration. We sort of got some merch made up, so we did some fun t-shirt designs and got some stickers and hats printed. Again, we kind of try to always have some sort of personal project on the go at any one time. So whether it be learning a new bit of software, playing around with just a different media. So again, like actually having some physical things to print and produce. So we got these t-shirts, these hats are embroidered, and then these t-shirts are screen printed. So we got to kind of get a little glimpse into the side of how things like that are produced, which was really fun. And yeah,
Yeah, and also doing some article writing,
yeah.
getting into content a little bit. That was one of my outlets again because I can't create visual stuff. It's quite nice for me to get into writing again. So I do a little monthly recap on the motion industry at the end of every month, which is what's kind of led now into this video Q&A series that we're kicking off at the end of this month. So yeah, just trying to do things that step outside the day to day a little bit and keep you on your toes creatively.
Yeah, so things like events as well. Anytime we any events in London or in Lisbon that we can find that look good, whether it be design events. I think Jimmy went to Stockholm for Design Week. We've sort of been to some events at the D&AD and the Drum. So just like listening to those events, and I guess just it's a lot of the stuff again, sort of keeping your finger on the pulse in terms of what's going on in the industry, and not necessarily just sat behind your desk all the time, and trying to encourage. Yeah, more things like that.
Cool. Right, jump into operations now. Wicked. So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about operations. I think it's something that, again, it's not the sexiest thing to talk about, maybe not the most exciting thing when we're looking at the creative industry, but I think it's something that's really important. And I think there's a lot of untapped potential, particularly for smaller studios to look into their operations. For me, it's something I've always been interested in. I've always been a bit of a tech nerd. Like, again, after working 8 years in for technology companies. Even kind of when I was a kid, before I got into my working life, I was always interested in technology and software, and so I've always been kind of keeping on ahead of the curve as much as I can do with that. And then, as I said, working at Apple, seeing how a company like that run and manage their operations was a real insight into me around how making sure you're efficient and robust is the best way to really just grow and expand and keep a business running stably. So it was something that the studio that I joined prior to OK, I was also very much involved. It was kind of like one of my other responsibilities aside from just getting new business was looking into how can we actually take our technology to the next level. How can we run in an efficient manner? Because similar to OK, the old studio that I worked at also started off remote. So it's something I spent a lot of time kind of like analyzing and looking into and refining. And I think what's important to note about that is that isn't just a one and done. You don't just come in, do the operations, sort it all out, and then that's it forever. And again, this is where smaller studios, I think, have a opportunity to be a little bit more nimble. So it's an ongoing process, and it's something that could always keep on top of. And I think like what's really great about this is once you get things in a good place and you're running smoothly, it's not just great for you; it also reflects onto how you work with your clients. And I think the more focused you are on it, the more clients notice it. And when you make things easy for them, it just gives them every reason to come back to you. So, few key kind of things I'd say around managing operations is firstly, as I said, like build your tech stack out, but don't stop there. Constantly assess it. Like if you have issues with things, you should always constantly be looking, right, there are alternatives to this. Can we make this work in a better way? As I said, it's not a one and done thing. It's something that is just a constantly ongoing thing to be looking at. There's always new tools coming out. There's always new updates coming out. There's always new ways of working. Um, Obviously, right now the landscape of digital tools is constantly shifting. So I think now more than ever, it's really important to keep on top of processes and operations. And as I said, this all leads into how your clients experience working with you as well. So we use a lot of collaborative tools to make sure that communication is as fluid as it can be. So we use Slack, we use Teams, we have channels all set up with our external partners as well as our internal team, just to make it easy for them to contact us and keep in touch with us, both when projects are going on, but it also reduces that friction of like they might just have a quick question about a potential project. And if they can just send us a DM rather than having to go into their email app and write an email, it's much easier. It also a lot less formal. So I think it builds that relationship up really nicely as well with the people that you're working with. And then similarly, we use a lot of collaborative tools when it comes to feedback. So we use boards for storyboarding, we use Frame.io for our video. So again, just making sure that when it comes to those kind of nitty gritty stages of projects, the clients are having to feedback and we're going back and making amends. Just again, just taking that headache off, not doing it via email where things can get lost. Just making like a really clear communication channels for that side of things. And again, like I really think that I really believe that this is where a lot of younger studios or smaller studios, independent studios have a real kind of like opportunity to shine. Jack's worked at some of these larger agencies. We've seen it firsthand. There's a lot of red tape with bigger companies. You know, a new software might come out, but it needs to go through legal. It needs to go through XYZ people in order for it to get approved, and they aren't able to be as reactive, to be as nimble. And I think in a world where technology is changing and advancing at such a quick rate, the one real benefit for small and independent studios is to just be able to be on to ride those trends, to ride those waves, to be on it with new tech that's coming out, to implement it, to experiment. Because the bigger people, whilst they've got the money to maybe invest in their own versions of it, again, that takes time. It's a long process to implement, and it's not quite as easy. The amount of larger agencies we've spoken to that will be like, oh, God, yeah, we're on Teams, we hate it, but it's the way things are. And they aren't able to make those decisions and see those problems and react to them the same as small studios are. So I'd say, yeah, if you're running a small studio, one thing that is really worth investing time is definitely, yeah, looking at your operations and how you can be slick. But yeah, that's it from me on ops.
Yeah, and I think I guess just adding to that as well, since we kind of were been sort of tinkering with this for the last few months, I think you also really notice it as well on the ground, like when we're working on projects and when we need to get things done quickly, just like all these little things that we've optimized just cuts everything down. So that means we can focus on actually just doing the work instead of having to sort of be clunky around how things are delivered, and it just speeds that whole process up and just makes it a lot more enjoyable, to be honest. Cool. So yeah, just a little bit on some of the sort of clients and how we how we get work really.
Cool. So yeah, I want to talk through, I guess, yeah, a little bit about the sales side of things, finding clients, my journey, my experience, my learning with all of that, and how Jack and I work together to stay on top of ensuring that we've got consistent flow of leads, consistent flow of projects coming in. So I think like one of the key things I would just say is like knock on loads of doors, knock on them a lot of times, keep knocking. You're not always going to get a response straight away. But it's important to just keep on outreaching and keep on talking to people. I think I did like I'll hold my hands up, and I used to get a little bit like funny if people didn't reply, but oh, they're clearly not interested. I'd maybe sent them one email, I'd seen that they'd opened it, they hadn't got back to me. I'm like, well, they're not interested, which is totally not the case. I think the best clients, the people that you really want to work with, more often than not, they're going to be really busy. Like they're going to be really busy. A good example of this was Jack and I visited the DixonBaxi studio a while ago, and I'd reached out to Apoorva about 5 times, and then I sent him a message and I was like, I feel like a needy ex because I'm about to send a sixth message with no response, but I'd love to drop by, say hello, and got the response off that message. We dropped by, we said hello, and yeah, it's been really interesting chatting with them and keeping in touch with them. And I think, yeah, you have to be a little bit annoying sometimes, or at least feel like you're being annoying, because yeah, the best clients are always the ones that are more often than not going to be too busy to pick up your email. So just keeping on top of contacting people and reaching out. And on that as well, just grow and build a network. Like you might reach out to people and it's not necessarily going to lead to anything, but those connections that you build are so valuable. Just because you've met someone and maybe there's not an opportunity to work together, it's so great to keep in touch with them because that's your name being known. They might speak to somebody else and really think, oh, this person would actually be quite good to give this name across. And the more you do that, the more you go out there, the more you build these connections, the more people know you, the more people know who you are, and you're just a more familiar face. And it makes reaching out to other people a lot easier, makes it feel a little bit warmer. So my biggest bit of advice would be like just dedicate, if you can just dedicate an hour, try and set an hour aside every day just to send out a few messages, to send out some emails to your ideal clients. If you do that day in, day out, just an hour every day, that stacks up and builds up so much. And the more consistent you are with this, it just really helps you avoid peaks and troughs. And I think that's one thing that I've seen through working at smaller studios is it's really easy to get stuck in that feast and famine cycle where you do a lot of outreach, you do a lot of work, you start getting some projects in, but then you're busy with projects and you have to start focusing on other things and you take your foot off the gas in terms of outreach because in your head it's like, well, everything's fine now, we're busy, but there's always a delay on that. There's always a 3 to 6 month, maybe even longer delay on from what you're doing right now in this moment to when the impact's going to hit you. So that's a reason why a lot of studios get stuck in this kind of super busy to super quiet, super busy, super quiet cycle, is because when they get super busy, foot gets taken off the gas on keeping on top of reaching out and your sales efforts essentially, and that does take a while to catch up. So always just try and build it in, no matter how busy you are. It's really, really important to build it in. And one way that you can ensure that you can really keep on top of this stuff is to have a good CRM setup. So I've experienced quite a lot of different CRM tools, playing around with them. I would say small agency wise, we use Pipedrive now, and I think that's a fantastic one to use. It's just kind of cuts through the bullshit that you get with a lot of other CRM platforms where there's a little bit too much going on. It's very straight to the point, and it's really, really good for just scheduling in tasks, managing communications, and the more you keep on top of that, the easier it is on just keeping track of all your sales efforts and who you're talking to and when was the last time you spoke to them. So I'd really, really encourage people to look into a CRM platform. Pipedrive is great. So yeah, that's definitely one to check out. As we said earlier, just going out and meeting people face to face. So, not just having these conversations via email or an online call, but actually just like scheduling a day, maybe once every 2 weeks or so. What I used to do was I used this website called MapFling where I could plot points of people that I'd been talking to. And what I would do was I would schedule areas each week. So I would round up loads of agencies that were all close to each other. And then I would message all of them and say, hey, I'm in this area on X day. Are you around for a coffee? And then I would just go around and spend some time meeting up people, getting face to face. It's really, really big just to be able to go in there, shake someone's hand, and actually sit down and have a proper conversation that's not for a screen. Um, Another thing that's been really big for Jack and I, and we've been focusing on a lot, is just building social proof. So spending a lot of time on working on things like your LinkedIn in particular. Social media platforms are a really great way of warming up people that you've not spoken to and making yourself feel familiar before you've even had any of those conversations. So LinkedIn, I can't remember the statistic now, but it's like I think if you post like once or twice a week, you're in like the top 10% of people on LinkedIn. There's so many just like dormant people lurking around using the platform but not really using it. So the more active you can be on there, and the more you can put yourself out there, have your own opinions, share stuff you think's cool, share stuff that you've done. Just it's a great way to start a conversation. It's also a great way to just keep front of mind. If you meet these people, you're not obviously going to want to email them every week or every 2 weeks of prospective clients. But if you can meet them, make a good impression, connect with them on LinkedIn, and then post regularly on LinkedIn, combined with maybe dropping them an email once a quarter, just means that your face is constantly front of mind. And when those opportunities do arise, you're much more likely to have an email drop in your inbox about it. And then I think ultimately it sounds obvious, but just do good work. Don't overpromise. Don't underdeliver. Whilst that sounds really, really obvious, I think it can be quite easy sometimes to maybe get yourself into situations where you've promised something because at the time it seemed like that was what was going to win you the job. But it's much more better to just be realistic, do a good job, impress the client, be on time. That's what's going to get you repeat business. That's what's going to get you referrals. Um, Another thing as well is think about ways that you can deliver additional value as well. So again, these kind of articles that we've been writing are insights into the industry. It's a little bit of value that the other agencies that we work with might want to learn a little bit about. I've also started to do some workshops with some of the agencies we work with to help upskill their client services teams. So we predominantly work with other creative agencies. So one thing I'm starting to do over the next few weeks is some of the agencies that we work with is delivering workshops around motion and animation to their client services team. So enabling their client services team to be able to more confidently talk about motion and animation to help them sell it into their clients when they're selling projects. It's a win-win. They get more budgets, they get more client work, we get more projects off the back of it. So to think about ways that you can deliver additional value, because I think that's where you move from being just a supplier to a partner, and a partner is where the real value in a relationship is, and I think it's the best way to work as well. And lastly, just ask for referrals as well. Once you've worked with people and you've built a good rapport, ask them for referrals. Do you know anybody else that I could help out with, or anyone that might benefit from what I do? If you've done a good job for them, then they're not gonna say no, and a warm introduction is much better than just knocking on someone's door cold. So definitely make the most of those existing relationships through referrals as well. Um, I've waffled on a lot. Hopefully, that's been some good insights for people. But yeah, that's kind of I guess a brief overview of some of the things that I've learned, some of the things that I've done, and some of the ways that Jack and I now kind of like work together to ensure that we've got a good pipeline.
Yeah, and just touching on, I guess, from what Jimmy said there, I think that applies to both, like if you're a freelancer and also if you're a studio as well. I think the same tactics apply. I think they're just at a different scale. I think that's one thing. I guess keeping consistent when you're a freelancer, and all of those things. I think, yeah, they will apply. And getting into the swing of that is really helpful, and it, yeah, definitely helped me a lot as well. Cool. What's next? So I guess just want to touch on some of the things that we're, looking into the future, what we want to do. One of the things we're doing more and more now is sort of looking at pitching projects to clients. So rather than kind of sitting there and waiting for briefs to come to us, trying to think a little bit out of the box, think about how we could potentially help clients, pitch ideas to them, and just be a little bit more proactive with that. So whether it be the case of kind of we put a little deck together, jump on a call, kind of run through some ideas we have. Either, it can be, so for example, at the moment, we're sort of like finding some other reference of other cool stuff, their competitors have done, and then coming to them and going, we think we could do this, this, and this, and going about that kind of approach rather than, I think especially as, in the kind of production side of things, we kind of will just generally kind of sit there and maybe wait for a brief. So we're just trying to, I guess, take that kind of bigger ad agency approach to work where we kind of go out and picture it and come to them with ideas. I think this has the benefit of them also seeing us as also, the kind of creative minds, not just the production minds. We can kind of come up with the ideas and produce them. And it also allows us to kind of craft the work that we get to do. We get to kind of engineer some of the projects that we work on. We can get in at that early stage and, steer the direction. It kind of allows us to be more creative, work on projects that we want to do, explore new routes, and yeah, try different things.
Yeah, it's funny with that as well. I always used to like I did used to think it was a bit upselly, like coming with that, and actually it's really not. Like we've had a few different studios and partners recently say to us like, hey, like if you have anything cool, you do any cool work, you have any cool ideas, like send it our way. Like they want that consultative relationship. They want their finger on the pulse as to what's going on in the industry, and whilst they are in the creative industry, they might not have as much of an eye on the specialty that we're doing. So yeah, it's a really great way to build relationships, and as Jack said, shape the work that you get as well, and also just value yourself a little bit higher as that expertise. Um, as for what else we've got going on, we've got loads of events this year. So again, we're just really kind of investing in that side of things. It's been really good for us. So we're off to we've got D&AD. We're doing South by Southwest in London. We're going to be at Cannes Lions, and we're also going to be at Paradigms in Marrakesh towards the end of the year. So if anyone on this call is at any of these events, we're going to be in London. Yeah, as I said, for the DNAD and the South by Southwest one, like give us a shout. It'd be cool to meet and say hello. We're also trying to do a lot more of this kind of thing, so a lot more kind of speaking and presenting, talking on topics, whether that be a group kind of insight thing like this, or the like I just mentioned earlier about doing these kind of value given presentations to the clients that we work with. It's a really good way to connect with people, all these like lunch and learns, etc. And then lastly, again, the kind of podcast Q&A. I don't know whether to brand it as a podcast right now, but the video Q&A series that we're kind of starting off the back of the articles. If you are interested, we're going to try and get a subscription or subscribe link together for it so you can stay notified. We've got some really exciting ones. As I said, we're kicking it off with Brian Collins. We've got Kat from How&How. We've got Taxi Studio, Koto, hopefully Porta Rocha. So quite a lot of really exciting studios lined up for that for the rest of this year. So if it's something you're keen to hear about, to learn more about how these kind of big leading studios are incorporating and using motion graphics within their projects, then yeah, keep your eyes peeled because we will start to have those rolling out soon. So yeah, lots of exciting stuff on the horizon for us. But yeah, it's been great kind of jumping on and doing this today. It's Jack and I's kind of first presentation together. So hopefully we've done a good job. Hopefully we've provided some good insights for everybody. We just kind of riffed this. We wanted it to be a bit more human, a bit more natural rather than just, talking through work, etc. Like Jack said at the start, we kind of wanted to show this side of the agency that might not get talked about quite so much. So yeah, we wanted this just to come off quite natural, quite human. And yeah, would love to, if anyone has any questions, anything like that at all, the floor is open.